Welcome to another episode of the Quantum Connection Roundtable. Today, Lauren and I are going to expand on a conversation that we just had with Morley Robbins. In our last episode, Morley discussed the concept of fear and its relationship to iron and oxygen levels in the body. He walked us through how hormones respond to the state of oxygen and that oxidative stress caused by the tension between copper, iron, and oxygen is the greatest stress on the planet. Morley emphasized the importance of understanding this tension to address physiological and biological issues. But he also highlighted how the cells respond to oxygen through the lens of fear. Lauren and I have often discussed or alluded to the concept of as above, so below. So, if the cells are responding to a lack of oxygen as a biological mechanism that mirrors the emotion of fear, and when we experience fear, we alter our breathing patterns, which in turn lowers oxygen tension, we create this vicious cycle where fear begets fear. We want to take this conversation deeper and really highlight the emotional component of the healing journey and connect more dots for you, specifically how this alters the light show inside of you, how this impacts the nervous system, and how you can begin to navigate your way back to wellness through the lens of love. So, hi,
Yeah.
Lauren. How are you?
Hi, Kelly. Yes, I'm great. How are you? That was amazing.
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have this conversation. It really, I think, will be a great conversation for listeners to really kind of begin to unravel a lot, or not unravel, but like put the pieces together from a lot of conversations that we've had
Mm.
already. We've been wanting to have this conversation with Morley for quite some time because it's a really big piece of the puzzle. And so, yeah, I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Likewise, me too. It, I think that it's super important to understand that the healing picture is so multifaceted, and in that multifaceted um understanding, it's awareness that actually brings us to transmutation, you
Yeah.
know. But it's happening on the biological level, it's happening on the quantum scale, it's happening in the emotions, it's happening in the mental body, it's happening in the spiritual, all of these areas. And when we're in a self transformation process, it can be a little daunting to be like, wait a minute, what? My mental what? My emotional what? My cells, so it's like all these pieces start to get overwhelming, but it is a master language that we are learning to speak, right? And I think you mentioned it in your intro, returning to the frequency of love, the vibration of love, and that master language, that's the master language. And you can speak Spanish to talk about biology, you can speak, uh I mean, I'm using metaphors. You can speak French to talk about the quantum scale, or all of these, everything in between, but we're talking about the master language that is kind of beyond language that we all speak.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to put it because love is that not just a master language, but it is the frequency that creates coherence, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so we've talked about this a little bit before that our perception of love driven by societal standards or concepts and even the language we use is one of it's transactional. But what we're discussing is a frequency of love. It's a state of being, and it's kind of this homecoming. I view life now through the lens of like all of these experiences, all of these emotions, thoughts, patterns, behaviors, etc., are all designed to help us navigate our way back to our coherent state or our original state of love. And so the conversation that we had with Morley was so important because I think fear is the indirect opposition to love.
Yep.
And so when we experience fear from our physical reality, it's being mirrored at the cellular level, but also what's happening at the cellular level is being mirrored in our emotional
Yeah.
state. Yeah.
Yes, I think I made a comment where I was asking him about iron overload in the tissues. And I said, if you have iron overload in the tissues, you have iron overload in your etheric body.
Mm,
So it's like what's going on in the biology is going on in the other bodies of our existence. We're multidimensional beings. So it's going on in the other bodies of existence. So that iron overload could be an etheric iron overload. This is where it gets confusing. It could be an etheric iron overload, and the etheric iron overload could be influencing the bodily iron overload and
yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you have an iron overload in the etheric body, when you think about what we've learned from the Heart Math Institute and how our heart creates this toroidal field,
Yep.
if there is iron overload in the etheric body, what we're informing in relationship to others is the information of fear. And
Mhm.
so, oh, this can go so deep. So when you think about attachment theory from nervous system work or, the trauma lens, how this can essentially be an iron issue.
Well, yes, yes. So, okay, so let's walk back because there's two really important things that I think that will get us to understand the discordant frequency that causes a symptomology that we call dis-ease. It's not really real, right? There is no dis-ease, but there is, right? But it's a frequency disruption. The what you just said about an attachment theory, I have recently come to the understanding of a very potent three-word combination from listening to Walter Russell's perspective on scientific reality and nature. And his three-word combination is rhythmic balanced interchange. Rhythmic balanced interchange is bi-directional ping pong. It is love moving back and forth between anything in balanced exchange. But an attachment theory or an attachment disorder, for example, is a lack of rhythmic balanced interchange, right? The scale is imbalanced and there's one that's perceived as less, the other that is perceived as more, and then that perception is on both sides of the seesaw, right? And then you get like conditional love, or you get like um a fear that you're not going to be loved, that you're not going to get what you need, that this rhythmic balanced interchange transaction is never going to work out for you, and then you are in fear, right? So this I think is like the core of all of it, and nature is rhythmic balanced interchange. There are aspects of nature that are super harsh, right? Like it doesn't feel quote unquote loving when um a lion eats its prey in the jungle. That's like very intense, right? And you're just like, how could that be love, right? But the system of nature, when you look at it gestalt, all works together in rhythmic balanced interchange.
Yeah.
When you disrupt that,
Yeah.
you've got overload.
Yeah. Yes. And the way you just described all of that, so I had something happen yesterday that is a real life example of what you just said.
Mhm.
So I went out to go for my afternoon walk, and on the pond there was a blue heron.
Mm.
And it has been so cold here, and so the pond is slightly frozen. And I thought, oh wow, I guess I didn't realize a blue heron would be in an area where it would be frozen. And so I went about my walk. I came back, and a neighbor dog had followed me home. And this dog is super sweet. She's cute. She's little, whatever. So it didn't bother me. I was like, she knows where she lives. And a few minutes later, out of one of my windows, I saw this like really speedy movement. And I thought, oh, my dog and the neighbor dog are playing. And I thought I was going to go look and see them playing together. This neighbor dog got into my chicken coop and
Uh,
killed like seven chickens and maimed quite a few other ones.
Oh,
And so my kids are crying, one of my daughter's crying, and like, just all this like chaos is happening. And we have to get the dog out of the chicken coop, and we have to take out a couple of chickens because they're too hurt, right? So there's a lot going on. Well, afterwards, as I was going through my pictures and was going to post the picture of the blue heron on Instagram, I thought, well, I'm going to look up the meaning of a blue heron. And it talked about how in tribal situations, when a blue heron visited a tribe or an area, they saw it as a blessing from the gods, and they had to make a sacrifice to the blue heron.
oh,
I was
what?
like, okay, that's weird. I guess my chickens were the sacrifice for the blue heron visiting, but also just how hardy a blue heron is. And so, in the moment when I'm witnessing the dog and the chickens and all that, fear arose, right?
Yeah.
But the transmutation is that understanding that everything around us is both a lesson and a mirror for our own experience. And so nature was informing me about my own transmutation of fear. And I
Mm.
woke up this morning with a lot of fear and kind of a histamine response. It's just such a beautiful but delicate balance. And the more you can understand or have awareness that the universe is working for you, when you experience this kind of fear, you can experience it without forcing it back down into the system, right? We kind of just talked about this before we started, this breaking the loop of trying to swallow the fear or forcing yourself to hang on to it instead of allowing it to be experienced and release it.
Yes, yes. I think first of all, that's amazing. I love the scene informing you with the heron and then the dogs and the chicken. Yikes. Um the I think what's so important to bring up is that when our n- um iron and copper, for example, if you want to look at it through that lens, is imbalanced, the magnetic, because we're electricity and magnetics, electric and magnetic in a torus field, right? And it's a harmonic, and it's a harmonic of light and sound. It's happening on all scales of existence, in a cell, in you with your heart, what heart math talks about, on a planetary scale, all the way up, all the way down, right? All the way up to all the way down to the subatomic particles, all the way up to the big cosmic. And the disruption of the rhythmic balanced interchange between electric and magnetic, right, is like coming from it's like the the imbalance is happening from that how do I want to say this? So I want to say a quote that I think Dr. Jack Kruse said: when atoms change their oxidation state, it changes their magnetic footprint. When it changes the magnetic footprint, it changes the way they work with light. And if everything is light and everything is kind of projected in units of light, how when we're disrupted with like too much iron, for example, now we've got too much of, if you ever played with iron filings, you can take a magnet to it and you can like move it around, right? So that's happening inside of us in our biology, and we we are being coerced by that magnetic principle, that principle, to be stuck in the loop. Does that
Mhm.
make sense what I'm
Yep.
trying to say?
Yep.
So the way in which we're interacting with the particles of reality are building a loop, like a feedback loop of the fear informing itself to continue to create it. And a really good metaphor that I am like using with my clients lately is the beginning of The Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy is being harassed by the lady on the bike,
Mm.
Gulch or whatever her name is, and she's like, "I'm taking your dog. Your dog is a jerk." And that you know, that whole transaction is happening. It's real, right? You're experiencing it. You're in the danger and you're like, this neighbor bitch is going to take my dog. What's happening? Like, no, please don't kill my dog, right? Like, it's happening for real. But when we get into the feedback loop of like strumming a memory or strumming the original source of that, it's as if we're in, now think about the beginning of Wizard of Oz, and she's like in the tornado and she's traveling to Oz in the tornado in the house, and she looks out the window and she sees this lady riding a bike that's floating by in her window, and then the lady turns into a witch, right? And so it's happening again, but it's not actually happening, the original memory that is on the ground, you know, it's
Yep.
happening in her mind again. That's the loop. But now let's go back to what I was saying about like the magnetic footprint. It's changing the spin so that when we have iron overload, we are dysregulated in our magnetics to continue to loop the the like, to trigger the memory and then loop the memory, and then we're constantly seeing the lady in the window
Yeah.
apparition
Yeah.
over and over and over, and bringing us right back to the beginning where the confrontation is happening again because we manifest it. Does that make sense how I'm
Yeah.
trying to explain it?
It does to me 100%. Absolutely. And where we get hung up is the lack of recognition that the frequency has been triggered for the sole purpose of transmutation to, change the narrative around it. Instead, we experience it as if it's happening all over again, and we attempt to wall it off or avoid the discomfort of the experience, which perpetuates the experience and is actually the sole source of suffering. Yes.
Yes, it's very easy to have a recurring symptom and register that recurring symptom as, oh shit, it's happening again.
Yep.
And then when you register it as, oh shit, it's happening again, it becomes a copy paste into your reality. And now it's called a chronic symptom.
Right.
And because the and it's I'm having this moment right now of transmutation where I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, so if you have a symptom, right, you might be better off connecting to the awareness, which is the universal language of, awareness, and being like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited I have this symptom, this is so wonderful, yes, cool, releasing this. And in that moment of getting on board with experiencing it, like I tell my clients when I'm like, okay, listen, we just changed reality. So, through working with your memories and working with your, field. If you, in the next week or so, see the lady in the bike in the window, just let it roll and
Yeah.
say, cool, because it's going to just kind of blow by you
Yeah.
in a way that's just not the real example, but it's going to be leaving. It's going to be leaving.
Right.
So it's actually, this is a paradigm shift of how you break the loop of a symptom by
It's
saying
yeah.
it's exciting to let this go. However, we do live in a physical world of um science of biochemistry, etc. So we have to deal with the electrics and the magnetics of this iron overload. So it's kind of like we have to do two things at once. We have to balance this iron, or we have to balance our light environment, or we have to balance our nutrition as we transmute these emotions so that we can even get to the awareness outside of the magnetic discord.
Yes.
So we can be like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, this is happening to me. It's so exciting. Oh yay. She just breezed by my little window in the tornado and she's gone. Cool. Rather than being like, oh God, she's back again, here to steal my dog.
Yeah. I think there's a word that can help anybody who's listening that may be slightly confused or thinking, what? It's the identification with the memory or the experience. So when it happens to us, we we witness it from a space of identification. We're like, this is who I am, this is what has happened to me, instead of breaking that relationship and becoming the observer.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So the equation that I remember, that equation that I brought up, that is it's called it's how the internet works, it's how we
Yes. Yeah.
create and print reality.
Yeah.
Um it's hold on, I'm going to bring it up because we have to, let's see. It's called 10 modulation, and this is the equation, this that there is a plane of existence, which is 0 point, and then there's an oscillation that oscillates at like trillions of times a second, and we are blinking in and out of reality from matter to antimatter, and we hit that center point at through the oscillation and the wave, and every single trillionth of a second we copy and paste reality like um a film strip. When if you're looking at a film, like how they make a movie, it's 24 frames per second and they cut them together per second, it looks like things are moving, and it's movie magic.
Right.
Well, our movie magic of reality is in the trillion frames per second, and we are going from matter to antimatter, blinking, 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 and it's every single trillionth of a second you have a chance to copy and paste a new story, right? at that 0 point between matter and antimatter, if this makes sense. And this is literally how we send and receive information. The 1024 QAM equation is how the internet works, which is an outpicturing of how we work.
Right.
It's like the technology is teaching us our inner abilities,
Yeah.
and remembering. We
Yeah.
we Right. So we can copy and paste. So when the apparition of the lady in the window comes up, we have a chance to destroy and uncreate the old issue and create a new print and move forward and
Yeah.
create reality. And
Yes.
this is where we get lost and we start copy and pasting our symptom or our experience over
Right.
and over, and we're just doing making the donuts again, same day, same problem. you know
Like Laverne and Shirley. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and there's so much that goes in to the equation, like Herring's law of disease, right, states that um, the energetics of how the body is impacted, it's from outward in. And then we know with from the cell danger response that the path to healing is not the same path that we took to disease. We have to go in reverse. And so
Yeah.
when we're talking about this, and you briefly mentioned it, we have to address the biological component in terms of like nutrients and re-establishing a new set point. Both of you and I have used the ketogenic diet to do this, to re-establish things. um, and there's a lot that goes into the ketogenic diet because it does operate on frequency at that level, and it's creating new water within the system, and water holds memory, right? And so it's doing a lot of stuff at the cellular level, but then also, which I don't know the root cause protocol, not even close to the way you do, but then there's very specific minerals that also need to be balanced within the system. And then you kind of get yourself to this point where all of what we're talking about right now, this transmutation, this revisiting things, becomes possible because you've created essentially enough cellular energy
Yep.
to be able to navigate this experience in this way.
Yes. And I think the like Morley was talking about recycling. So part of the RCP is iron recycling. So you want to, instead of having too much iron, and then it's like, imagine this, you have a closet, and you every day you get a new sweater, and you just have piles of sweaters and piles of sweaters. You don't have, you start to get bundled up, and it's like a hoarding situation where you have too much and you can't recycle it. You can't utilize your recycling, which ketosis gets you to it's a tool that you can use to redesign your water and your memory so that you can have metabolic flexibility. You're recycling,
Yeah.
right? You're recycling. You're going from uh ana- anabolic to catabolic, and you're not stuck in catabolic. Like, now your closet's getting way too full cellularly, and you're like, oh, I can't even see what I have in here, this is crazy. Now you're removing things that you don't need. You're clearing away. It's like you're cleaning your closet. Do I need this outfit? I haven't worn this in 10 years. Get it out of here. That's like the cells that are broken down and not they don't fit anymore. You're deleting that. So that recycling is, I think, if we go back to rhythmic balanced interchange, that's the recycling system being up line. That's metabolic flexibility. That's if we look at it from the lens of water, there's no stagnant water in your ecosystem collecting, a pond.
Bacteria. Yep.
Yeah, yuck, with different organisms. Everything is just like moving water. It's almost like a Japanese, serene, where there's a like a a waterfall with a little pond, and the fish are happy and everything's moving. That's you, right? So I
And then when we do that, when we tap into our ability to be metabolically flexible and what's happening is that we're creating more coherence with the light show that's inside of us
yes,
because the cells speak in light. It's called biophotons. And when we are in a state of oxidative stress, the biophoton signaling is very chaotic, so to speak. I've read situations where when there's a lot of inflammation, there's more biophoton signaling, but it's not coherent. Like more doesn't mean better.
right.
Um, it loses its kind of structure and function, so to speak. But when we lower that inflammation, when we lower that oxidative stress, when the iron can shuttle the oxygen into the cell and that oxygen turns to water like it's supposed to, we are creating a situation within the biophoton signaling that is very coherent, and then cell to cell communication is reestablished. We get, on the larger scale, the organs are functioning more coherently. And then also the nervous system speaks in light. And so we are facilitating nervous system regulation through the entire process as well.
Yes, yes. You can also say you're either making energy or you're making inflammation, right? And inflammation can be looked at from the physical lens and also from the metaphysical lens, the energetic lens, that emotions inflame you and your ability to communicate. So whatever the entire scenario you just laid out, if you're inflamed biologically, you're not going to be able to make those coherent communications, that rhythmic balanced interchange at the level of scale. And you're also not going to have a rhythmic balanced interchange in your environment. So you're going to be mad in everywhere from like somebody cutting you off on the freeway to your interpersonal relationships. You're going to feel inflamed, right?
Yeah.
And it's so it all works together. And the biophotonic communication, that light code that we speak in, and we are communicating with the light in our environment, is going to be um like magnetically disrupted, right?
Yeah.
It's not going to be coherent. And every disease, I'm learning, is like it's just it's a it's a misperception.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incorrect signaling. It's like looking for an FM radio station on the AM dial. Like the signaling is not aligning.
Yeah.
And then it makes me think of what we know from studying the mind. Humans have what's called a negativity bias, right? Like where we tend to focus on the negative aspects of life. And so, what do they say? You need to say five nice things to your child for every negative thing that comes out of your mouth to like offset it, right? But when you think about our human experience through the lens of what you and I are discussing, the I think the reason we focus so much on these perceived negative experiences is because this is the transmutation process. Like that is where your focus, focus isn't the right word, but like that's where your growth lies. So, of course, that's how the mind is going to perceive things because it's in that very quote unquote negative experience that you are being given the opportunity to up level your consciousness, to take it to, the whole, each rung of the ladder is closer to the state of love that we initially talked about.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to go back to like what you were outlining when we have like an egoic moment of it's like the memory you become the how can I sum it up? Like, and it's interesting because before we started taping this, I have like you can't really see it right now, but I have like an inflamed eye that is a recurring thing that has happened to me. And I was, we were discussing like, where is the start point of this opportunity that has arisen in the form of a symptom to, it's the lady in my window riding the bike and I'm like, oh god, what's happening? Where was the original thing that's causing the symptom to repeat now? And it's it's okay. So when the symptom occurs, we tend to blame ourselves for being bad or oh, it's because I'm ugly or it's because I'm it's my fault, right? Then all of that like original shame from the memory, it comes back up and then you think you're in the actual original dysfunction again and you put the robe back on
Yeah.
and you become it and it overwhelms you until you can say, who am I right now in this moment? Okay, I'm having a moment of inflammation. Who am I in this moment? I am not my memory. I am now the version of myself. Therefore, I can transmute the pattern of the inflamed old memory. But this e- takes awareness and the awareness of half of part of the awareness is attuning to the physical imbalances in nutrition in your elements, which are your minerals or the environment and light and all the things that we do physically. Attuning to like, oh wow, I have a chance to totally transmute this in this now moment and reprint a whole new story in this trillionth of a second.
Yeah, it is time travel. That's exactly what's happening. Your emotional state, your memories, your thought patterns are picking you up and placing you back at the original
Yeah.
location of the assault. And then you have a choice. You can go back with it and, rework it, create a new narrative, create a new memory. You get to do that, but also like, you know in the quantum community there's so much talk about, the suprachiasmatic nucleus is the master timekeeper of the body. I believe that is the physical component, but it is the emotions that are the master timekeeper of the body. It is our emotional experience that allows us to time travel.
Because time doesn't exist.
Right.
That's the issue with the equation.
Right.
Time doesn't exist.
Right.
So, yeah,
Space and time are not. and I just posted a reel on this in Instagram this morning. Space and time are not real in the regards of what we have always considered them to be. It when you can undo the box that we have been put in by society and programming and science in all of these regards, and you can dismantle the walls, what you begin to understand is you are fucking magic. Like you can do everything they told you you cannot do. You quite literally can. And I'm not saying you can wake up tomorrow and be the fairy godmother or what, you know what I mean? There's a process. It's like the yellow brick road, back to your Wizard of Oz thing. We have to go brick by brick, piece by piece, encountering the lion, encountering the scarecrow,
Yep.
and this is the process of remembering who you are at the core, which is love. And when we embody that whole state of being, it is the ultimate enlightenment. It is the ultimate coherence. It is the timekeeper of the body. It is all of these things. We become a self-sustaining being, in my opinion.
Yes, and we were talking about this. I'm going to bring this part of we just had a conversation about this. I'm going to bring it in now that when we, um, so we are magic and we are able to create in that way that you just laid out, but we are taught through even knowledge and science and all of the things that like nope, that is poison, this is bad, good, all these scales of good, bad, high, low, yes, no, that it must be somewhere there, and we are just um messed up in our yes, no, good, bad. Oh, this is the wrong thing to use. This is the right thing to use. This food is bad. This food is good. This light is bad. This light is good. All of that. We're stuck. We're stuck as a victim of understanding that my outside circumstances I am at the mercy of, but we forget the biophotonic part of the equation, that we have the the sensors on the inside to be able to work with all, I'm just trying to sum it up, all the molecules around us we can work with through our own creation of them. So now we might be able to have the seed oil fries and be like, you know what? These things don't even bother me. I'm recreating my relationship with these things.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that we should all eat Kraft macaroni and cheese every day in the dark and, whatever. I'm not saying that, but we might not be at the mercy of all the outside things when we get to a level of Harry Potter's wand school to graduate and be like, "Oh, I have a wand and it works. This is crazy. Who knew?" Right? Like, who knew that I create reality?
Yeah, it's the biology of belief. It is the placebo effect, right? Like we know it in these small ways, yet we still minimize our own capabilities from day to day to day. Like we are constantly in a state of forgetting. So you have to constantly remind yourself of what you are capable of, what you're made of, and who you are. You, and like you said, you are not the experience, you're not the emotion, you're not any of those things. You are the observer. That it's like you've said this before too. You're the avatar. You're in there just witnessing all, and you forget that you're the driver. Like you are the main character of the entire fucking movie. And you also get to direct the movie and produce the movie. And you know what I mean? You get to be the set designer and the costume person. Like you get to do it all. And so just like whatever you can do on a day-to-day basis to remind yourself that you are not a victim of circumstances. And then when you think about all of the experiences that you've had, and especially if you've had someone, significant trauma, which I would say, like my childhood was their back-to-back experiences that were pretty dark. All of that gets to be transmuted into its equal opposition. So, as much dark as I have experienced, that's how much love I also get to experience, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I think that Abraham, have you heard of this? It's called Abraham, and it's Esther and Jerry Hicks, and they do this, it's kind of like a thing where they talk about creating reality, and they talk about like exactly what you said, the amount of experience that you have of the darkness where you're like, a no thank you for that, pendulum swings you into the ability to have the no thank you for that, so that you have that equal and opposite experience of like, wow, amazing, this is amazing, from learning from that, not having that desire, you can now experience the having, because it has like an like a pendulum equal counterpart, you know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And so when just to tie in one more piece to this, like language is how we communicate with each other. It's how we experience the world. But language can be a tool or it can be a weapon. And so, not just with how you talk to yourself, but also how you describe experiences. And like from what I've read, on human consciousness and when someone gets to like this state of enlightenment or even gets closer to the full embodiment of love, they typically want to exit society, and language is a part of why they want to do it because they no longer feel like what they're experiencing can be put into words, and to be able to converse with other people, like there's just such a gap in that. And so paying attention to language, it's just I don't know like, so how you relate to victimhood and how you relate to identity and how you relate to all of these things really keeps us attached to them in the physical experience, back to that identity, right? Like I'm a Seahawks fan, or I'm a, this, and I'm a that, and it's like, really? You may enjoy watching the Seahawks play football every Sunday, and you may enjoy listening to Taylor Swift, or you may enjoy dancing at a club, but that is not you.
Right.
You are love in
Mhm.
human form, the
Mhm.
vibration of love. So you
Mhm.
kind of have to chisel away at all of these energetic components that are kind of in between you and the experience of love.
Yes. And we can loop that back into like a little bit of science where we say, like, I don't have mitochondrial energy, right? Energy is information. Information is light. Light is love. So it's kind of like, yep, you don't really have connection into your love. You're disconnected. You don't have energy. And when you don't have energy, you don't have information of the template of love, which is light.
Right.
It's kind of like cliche. It's like,
Yeah.
spoiler alert, it's like sparkle motion here.
Right.
From that
Yeah.
movie, Darko, like sparkle motion. It's like the currency of energy is actually love.
Yeah. And you can mirror this in the nervous system uh, states, because when you're in a freeze state, it shows that your metabolic function is essentially going into hibernation. It is shutting things down to focus solely on survival. That is the emotional component. It's all the same. And so, going out into the world and trying to navigate this way back to wellness, and which do I pick and what do I do? Because everything's isolated into these different categories. Well, like I have to do this, and then but it's all describing the same thing.
Yep.
It's all
Yep.
describing the same thing.
Coherence.
Yeah.
Coherence with the frequency of who you are. It's like that Rumi quote, your job is not to find love, it's to find everything that's blocking. I mean, I'm kind of butchering it, but it's like your job is not to find love, it's to find everything that's blocking it and take it off. You have all these overcoats on, take them off one by one to find the love that you are underneath, because you're not going to get it from another overcoat.
Yeah. Yes. And that on our path to taking off the all of the things that don't belong, these pieces of armor, we are so afraid of experiencing pain that we want to keep the armor on. And we have this mindset that, oh, if I get to what Lauren and Kelley are talking about of love, that I'm not going to experience pain. But pain is the human experience. And it is our resistance to that pain that again keeps us in this loop. It's that fear. So now we're right back at the beginning, the fear and the iron overload. Pain should not be feared because it's temporary, unless you put the armor on and you create that feedback loop that's like, until you're ready to witness me, I'm going to keep pushing the button. And it's like a ping pong freaking ball, right?
Yeah, that's like never ending. And you're like,
Right.
why? Right. And that, I think, the episode that we recently did about the German New Medicine, they have a grasp on the process of breaking that feedback loop. And sometimes the remedy stage of the initial trauma is maybe a little bit of a going backwards trauma. Now you're time traveling backwards. So you're going to have to, like, I always use the metaphor of, like, okay, you have a tea table with a bunch, you have high tea on a tea table. It spilled over. Now you have to put the tea table back upright. The drama and trauma of the tea table tipping over and then righting the tea table up is kind of a similar, this
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah.
It's just the opposite version. So sometimes the remedy pong and be like, wow, this is the remedy. Like our guest saying, I'm so excited to have this heart attack.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he knew that because he had resolved the conflict, that he was likely going to have a heart attack, and he did. And so when he was experiencing it, he was like, "Yes," because it confirmed that he had resolved the conflict.
Yep.
And we can see this mirrored in homeopathy, like cures like, right? So again, the fear component is what is stopping you from actually doing the transmutation process. Like there is nothing to fear, but fear itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in that awareness is like so much freedom.
Yeah.
So much freedom to use your wand.
Yeah. Yeah, what a great conversation. I was having such a rough start to the morning and then always talking with you. I feel like if people could see, I've got the biggest smile on my face. I just love it because it's such powerful work to like feel empowered again after so long of not feeling empowered.
And what a gift to experience the map to like to wellness, to that light side of things when you were in the dark. I mean, it actually is such a gift.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if I would like be like, yeah, I want to go on the ride again. I might be like,
Yeah.
lesson, right? Because it is intense to be here in a body, but what a gift to understand the just the beauty of the power that we have. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
I'm in awe of I'm in awe of how you, yeah, like whenever I think about you and your path, Kelley, I'm just like, wow, you are such a powerful being. Look at you.
It's been a shit show for real. But like so it makes me just so hopeful because if I could just influence one person to like have that same level of awareness and tenacity, I guess, right? Like,
Yeah, that's that I think is really an ingredient that you need. You need tenacity, and those that have tenacity are at an advantage of those that do not connect to the tenacity that they do have the capacity to have. Um, yeah, you do need tenacity.
yeah. And I think we all have it in us, but for some people it's easier to give no, I think we all have it in us. Some of us just find other people, like finding you helped me unlock another piece of it, right? And I
And
think
find
what,
me
yeah,
because we have rhythmic, balanced interchange, and love is tenacious.
yeah, yeah,
Love is tenacious. It's a never breaking bond. It's the most tenacious thing, right?
yeah.
It's like loving unconditionally is the most tenacious thing.
Yeah. I guess what I was trying to say is that over many lifetimes, I believe we have many lifetimes, and we forget that it's easier to understand that within this lifetime, we're all at different stages of the journey. But I think through many lifetimes, we're all at different stages of the journey as well. And so while I can sit and witness someone in this lifetime, and I will have the thought of like, if you could only have this gift, like if you could only see that I have a gift and I'm trying to give it to you, and if you just take it, everything changes. I forget myself that their stage of the journey isn't just about this lifetime, it's about all the lifetimes. And so maybe it's not in this lifetime that their transmutation journey begins. Maybe they're still collecting the tools, and maybe it happens in some other lifetime.
And but now I'm gonna make the equation more confusing because when you heal something in the now moment, you heal it in the all the other lifetimes.
It's true, but I think, just like they teach us in Alcoholics Anonymous AA, right? You have to be tired of your own bullshit. Like you have to hit your rock bottom and it's different for everyone. And we cannot judge someone else's journey and say, fuck, isn't this your rock bottom? Like, haven't you, you know? It's,
Yes, and it's like the most beautiful, even though it's like, a shit show to hit rock bottom in any way, shape, or form. It is the most beautiful equal and opposite that you mentioned that gets you to the expanded awareness and understanding if you should get on that boat, you know,
yeah.
and be like, oh, okay, right. It is like yeah, because once again, that tenacious unconditionalness was never not there underneath the overcoats. It was
Yeah.
always there, always there. It's like the end of the Wizard of Oz movie. She's like, "You could have gone home whenever you felt like it." You're like, "What?"
I tell him that now. Yeah.
Lied to her, and like right, the scarecrow's like, "Why didn't you tell her in the first place?"
Yeah, so hopefully this has helped connect some dots. That conversation with Morley was just such a well, a gift, and hopefully not just a gift for us, but hopefully for our listeners as well, because what a brilliant, I mean, there were so many questions I wanted to ask, and I would love to be able to speak to him again, and I'd love to just sit down and have coffee with him because he understood things in a way that, at least from where I'm sitting, I have not
Yep.
been able to speak with someone who's got the science and the, you know what I mean? That kind of wisdom from his life experiences. So I'm glad that we had that opportunity, and then to take today to kind of expand on it and kind of spin it in a way that the listeners will be able to hopefully, take into their, yeah.
Yeah. He reads medical papers every day for a series of hours for the last like 15 or 20 years. Like
Yeah.
he knows his shit in terms of, and he not only is reading the medical papers, he's reading the medical papers to like unravel the confusion.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he knows how to speak the language of the cells and biology backwards, forwards, and everywhere in between.
Right. Right. Well, awesome. Thanks for another wonderful conversation, Lauren. It's always just such a gift.
Yes, it is. Thank you too. I just learned so much in this conversation. So I'm so grateful to have this time to have this reflection. Thank you.